So welcome again. Maybe you have heard about this, or read this title. Which I came up is Hamlet and the Matchbox. So you might wonder what that could be, and at some point I will try to explain it. But before I will talk about the Matchbox and Hamlet, I like to come back and kind of connect to what we discussed last Wednesday. Remember? This took it with me again, just as a reminder. We talked about this Ego King, and this is from The Little Prince. Maybe you know it.
Mm-hmm. Little Prince.
And
from The Little Prince.
Little Prince,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And Ego King thinks that he is in command, but it's not the case. It's the Richten King. And the Richten King is, as it says in the chant, he possesses the glory of tiger, lion, Garuda, dragon, which means, in a simplified way, that he is kind of in command, or that his activity brings all about what we experience, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, feel and think. It's all the activity of the Richten King in the tradition of Shambhala. So, if the Richten King possesses all the glory of tiger, lion, Garuda, dragon, what is the possession of the Ego King? He doesn't possess very much, but he has a somewhat powerful tool, and this powerful tool is kind of the Ego King tries to solidify whatever we experience and make it in its own property. So we could also say the Richten King possesses the glory of tiger, lion, Garuda, dragon, all we experience, and the Ego King possesses attachment. That's all he possesses. That's all, but yeah. So the Ego King thinks that he's in command, that he is kind of also in command of itself, because when he gives command, all these commands are very reasonable, as I read in The Little Prince, you remember? He said, I'm the king and I'm only giving reasonable commands, and therefore they could be obeyed. So the Sakyan says, no, it's not the case. Not the Ego King is in command, but the Richten King is in command. And so this is a totally different approach here in Shambhala. Normally we think, even in science, we think, oh yes, all our experience is made up in our little brain. Yeah, and the source of all the experience comes from our brain. And they argue and say, yes, we can see there is activity going on, we can measure it, and there are certain parts, this is for seeing, this is for thinking, and so on. And then the next step they do is, okay, if there's activity, then it should be the source. But I think this is a very short-term thinking. It's like if you see some blinking light on the computer, and you say, oh, it's blinking there, this is where the computer works. It's not there, it's somewhere else. So it's not our little brain which is producing, it's a much broader view, and there are words to express it. It's like in the chants it says, the source has no beginning and no end. It's like the cosmic mirror, which is a really broad vision of where all our experiences comes from. So just to clarify that we are not talking about this little chattering in our brain. We are talking about a kind of vast, somewhat cosmic dimension. So there's also a very nice parable which shows this connection, which I like very much. It is the parable of a vast big ocean, and this vast big ocean has waves, and on top of the waves there are foam crowns. Do you say it? Foam crowns? Like the foam is kind of, in Germany we say Gischt. Yeah. So we have those three. We have the ocean, we have the waves, and we have the foam crowns. And they represent, the ocean represents the source where everything comes from. It's immeasurable, wide and open. And the waves, they kind of are the energy which comes out of the ocean, the first expression of the ocean. And after the waves, there is this foam crowns, which is our unique experience. So we have the big ocean, we have thousands of different waves, and we have millions and millions and millions of different foam crowns. And you might think, oh yeah, one of my experiences is just this foam crown. It comes and goes. The wave goes back to the ocean. And the good thing about this parable is that you can see that the wave and the ocean and the foam crown, they are not separable. They are not separable. They are inseparable. They are one. You can say they are one. But on the other hand, beside this oneness, there is this uniqueness of every wave and uniqueness of every foam crown. So we have both the oneness of the whole process and the uniqueness of our personal experience. So this was kind of review from what I said last Wednesday. And it's also always good to start with a big view. Otherwise you kind of struggle with the nitty-gritty and you forget about the view. So, let me see where I'm here. Yeah, maybe we could just start with a little picture which I copied for you. Maybe you can just give it around. Oh, everybody has one?
Almost.
So what you can see on this paper are three figures, and we will go through them piece by piece, starting with the top, with the lines. Some of them are longer, some of them are smaller. And if you look at the whole picture, you might see the long lines are not parallel. They are kind of going back and forth. But then, if you take a measure, like a centimeter, and you measure the distance, it's all the same. So the truth, which is told by a mathematics or how do you say it? Mathematician? Yeah. From a mathematician, he would say all lines are parallel. If you look at it and you don't see it, you are wrong. And they say, okay, you are not wrong. They say it's an optical illusion. Yeah. So, but when we now turn the page a little bit and tilt the page a little bit, so that we look over the page, you will see, oh yeah, all the lines are parallel. And if we tilt it back, all the lines are not parallel anymore. So what we are doing with these two kinds of, those two versions, I would say we should trust our experience. You don't have to believe the mathematician, was it, yeah? He means that his truth is the only truth. But what we now discover is two truths. Parallel truth and not parallel truth. So, and this is a very important point, I think, because most of the time we think there's only one truth, especially when we are kind of arguing with each other. My truth is the real truth, and the other person says, yes, my truth is the real truth. And so, because everybody thinks there's only one truth, they can't accept the other truth. So, in daily life, it's very good to think about that there are more than one truths, and we could kind of accommodate, first of all, the other truths before we judge. And there's also another example which shows that there are two truths. For example, if we lie down on a meadow and it's very quiet around us, only we hear a few birds and see a few flowers, open sky, and we have the feeling of it's really very quiet and not moving. But then the physicists came and said, oh, that's not true. The Earth is rotating with a certain speed, and then the Earth itself runs around the sun like hell, and so we are in a totally moving situation. You said, what? It's not my experience. So you see, for the person who experienced the meadow with the open sky, it's all very not moving. But if you, for this situation, but if you want to go to the moon, for example, then you have to consider that the planets move and that the Earth is moving and the moon is moving. So otherwise you couldn't get there. So it depends, the truth depends on the situation. It's not one truth. Most of the times there are at least two truths. So we don't have to believe in an optical illusion, even if people say this is an optical illusion. It's not. It's just two different truths which we can discover. So the next thing, you might have looked at it, simply shows three little round things and kind of three lines which are somewhat connected to a triangle, and then we see something which is not there. This is a white triangle, you see? Mm-hmm. And then the scientists say, oh yes, another optical illusion. But we know from our first figure that this is not a good answer. We don't have to buy into that. We can just ask, is there some truth we could discover out of this image? And I would say yes. The truth is that we see, or our mind creates something which is not existent. Yeah? And we think, okay, maybe with this example, but if you look at our experience, our mind does it all the time. This is what the nature of mind is, creating. For example, if we see a movie and we see a car passing by on the movie, we said, oh, there's a car. But if we really look into, it's not a car, it's just little dots of light on the screen. So it's not a car. Or if we look at our dreams, we see a car, we see people, they talk to us, we talk to them. Nothing of that is existent. It's created by our mind. So then we might think, oh, and what's about the car which I just want to go with, and I open the door and sit into the drive? It works. Yes, it works. But the Buddhists say, beside this car working, there is a fundamental thing which we always have to think about. It's just created by our mind. I mean, we don't create the car in terms of that we take all the pieces and put it together. That's not what I mean. But it's similar to our seeing of the car is similar to the experience of a dream, a creation. The only difference is that in the dream there seem to be no source or no object which our experience is relating to. In the cinema there is an object. It's little dots on the screen. And in the example of a real car, there is this what people call materia. I don't want to go into what materia is, because then we get kind of very sophisticated. But the main thing is that our experience, if we look at our experience and not on the object, then we can say this experience of seeing is created by our mind. And this experience of touching, if you touch the car, is also created by our mind. I know this is a very hard thing to be turning, but it's good to think in this direction, because it helps to work with our mind, and also it helps to work with our phenomenal world. In Buddhist teachings there is a slogan which says, regard all dharmas as dreams. Regard all dharmas as dreams. And dharmas is, in this context, it's not the dharma, the teaching. It means regard all phenomena as dreams. All phenomena. So the second illusion, optical illusion, is not an illusion. It tells us very profound truth. It tells us that our experience of seeing is a creation. And now we go to the last one. Maybe you want to look at it for a while, see what it does with your experience. Just relax your eyes and look at it. What is it?
It turns around.
Oh, it turns around? Do you mean it turns around, it rotates?
Well, first I see it as one way, and then I see it as another way.
Yeah, very good, very much so, yeah. Another?
Please.
The perspective, if it changes your perspective, then
Yeah.
changes, yeah.
First of all, if you look at it, it's just lines. It's lines, two-dimensional on a page. The first thing which happens is that our minds make it into a cube. Yeah? Immediately. And that makes sense because in our phenomenal world we have all kinds of cubes here. Yeah? All kinds of. And the second thing is that, as Swari said, that it changed the perspective. And it's not, if you look at it, it changes unexpectedly. It's not our doing. You can force it a little bit, but most of the time it just happens by itself. Have you seen it? Everybody have seen it? Mm-hmm. No? So with this example, we not only see that our experience is a creation, seeing is a creation, but we see that we see that it's creating a third dimension, which is not there on the paper, and we see this flipping around, which is also a very fundamental activity of our mind, that it can flip around in a second, like a thought comes up. You have no idea where it comes from, but we know that it just appears suddenly, and it appears without our doing. We're not doing it. So this is basically what this experiment or example shows. It shows the mind's ability to create and the mind's ability to change quickly without any force of ourselves putting into it. So maybe at this point, are there questions before I start with Hamlet and the matchbox?
I have a question, but it's about the last time.
Yeah.
I would like you to remind what's the difference between the rethinking and the primordial reasoning. Or maybe it's not a good moment to do it now.
Yeah, maybe we can do that to a later moment. Or is it a question of interest?
Is there a difference?
Yes.
There's a difference and there's no difference.
Oh.
So you see, it needs a little bit longer explanation. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the way the mind flips perspective unexpectedly. Is that something that is worth doing often to maybe if I am looking at something and I keep remembering there might be other perspectives that I need to look for or let my mind focus on?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's a very basic tendency or activity of our mind. For example, if we kind of nearly sit on a cushion and nearly fall to sleep, and at some moment, maybe you have experienced this, you kind of, whoops, you are brought back without your doing. So it's kind of the mind has this tendency to kind of bring in fresh moments all the time. Most of the time we don't experience it. We kind of don't want to see it, this flip. But this is a main quality of the mind, and it happens all the time, constantly. As the Sakyang says, it's I think what's 360 times in a finger snap. Consciousness, our consciousness appears and disappears.
Thank you.
But the main thing is here just to see the basic, fundamental activity of the mind, the creation and the flipping without our doing. So, yeah.
But isn't it that when we get attached to a certain perspective, that then it doesn't happen anymore? Yes.
Genau. This is the moment when he kind of is activity. He tries to make it. He tries to make the things solid, which are not solid. This is a really hard work. I mean, and it couldn't have any result because it never will happen.
That's what I experienced when it flipped. I experienced that also my ego started, oh no, it's only this way.
Yeah.
It doesn't go back.
Wait a minute, yes. Something went wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's very subtle, yeah.
It's very interesting because if I go into the flip thing, I had a view that I like and I have a view that I didn't like. And so I said that I was flipping, jack facing for the front or facing for the up, And when I was up, no, it's too disturbing. I just tried to realize, actually, who is flipping what? Good job.
Yeah. So, are we now ready for Mr. Hamlet? Good. So, because it says Hamlet and the matchbox, we have to have matchboxes. Please. Now we play Hamlet. Everybody should have a matchbox. But it's not a present. It's not a present. It's just lent from Practice Study Department, and I have to promise to bring it back. So, everybody? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Everybody has one? No, we have a lot. Sorry. Yes, everybody has to have one. You will need a new one.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody has it. So, the first exercise is, or the first question is, how many corners are on this matchbox? First, just think, not good. Look, count. How many?
8.
8. Good. Any other? 8.
No, 12.
12. Oh.
Yeah. We look at it.
I only can count 8. Nevertheless.
I counted different.
Yeah, I counted different, yeah. So we have 8 corners, and how many surfaces do we have?
6.
6. So we know this matchbox has 6 surfaces and 8 corners. This is a thinking process. We haven't looked at it. Now we take it in our hand and we hold it and we count. Now we count them from experience.
Yes, then we have very much.
Yeah, very much. How many? That is very much.
Well, 24.
Pardon me? No? Maybe you hold it in one position and then you count. So hold it in one position, then count.
And what do we count?
The corners. The corners.
Only 4.
4.
What?
Oh, there's 4, yeah. There's 6, and there's 7.
Oh, 7. I
7? Okay, so we have 4, we have 6, and we have 7.
Yes.
Somebody has 8?
1, 2, 3, 4, 4.
Just it depends on you keep it like this, but everybody.
No, yeah, this is interesting. You can keep it as you can keep it as you like, and then you count, and then you turn it, and you keep try counting again. So
I think you will never have 8.
this is really a good answer. Yeah, you will never have 8 because one of the corners is always hiding,
Yeah.
and if you turn it around to see it, then another corner disappears. See? So, experience of this is 7 corners, not 8, and another 6 corners. Of course, if you turn it like this and you just look very parallel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because you don't see 2 sides. You see. And then is also 4 if you just look at one. So now we found experience. Our experience tells us 3 tooths, 7 corners, 4 corners, 6 corners, or 4 corners. So we have 3 experience tooth and 1 tooth which is just thinking. This is 8 corners. And you know, sometimes it's really good to look at the corners, at the 8 corners, because if you want to describe to somebody a matchbox and you say, okay, this matchbox sometimes has 4 corners, sometimes 6 corners, sometimes 7 corners. It's very confusing. So it's better to have for description the thought form of a matchbox, because the other person can also have also his thoughts, and so we can communicate not in a way of experience, but in a way of thinking. We could think in the same way.
I can feel all the corners.
You can. Oh, you see. We have. You know, that's interesting. You can feel. So you see, the touching has more possibilities than the seeing, isn't it? You can touch all the 8 corners. Good, yeah.
And if you look at it like this, I mean, if you open only one eye, you see 6 corners. But if you open both, it's 3 dimension, and then you see 8.
Yeah, can 8. 8?
8?
No,
Oh.
8 is not.
Yeah,
8
but
is
because
not.
you have glasses, you said you are cheating.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you can. You can.
Yes.
Your eyes.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
But it's
so.
only
So you
because
have 4 in one.
only
Yeah. Because we have 2 eyes, you can see. Yeah. Now I see it. That's wonderful. I never thought about that. Yes, yeah. So. You see, we have now experience truth and we have thought truth, and both are valid. But if it comes to experience, we should really focus on what we experience and trust our experience, and not if other people tell us something different, we don't have to believe them. We can just trust in our own experience. It's very important. Most of the time, we kind of I have seen this, and people say no. This couldn't be. It's impossible. No? I said, okay, yes, it's impossible. If you say it's impossible, I had done a mistake. So you are right. No, we have to be kind of confident that our experience is right. We can trust it. Pardon me?
but there's also.
Yes,
so you
we
can
can.
have
Yeah.
more perspectives. Okay, he sees it in that way,
Yeah.
and I see it this
Yes.
way.
Yeah. So there are more than one truth.
Yeah.
It's always also very interesting. So now Hamlet comes in. So Hamlet is kind of, I don't know why I came to this, but I think it's this picture, from Hamlet holding a skull.
Mm.
So when I did this thing, and I hold it in turn, I said, "Oh, it's like Hamlet looking at the skull." So it's not the skull; it's just the matchbox. So we will try to find out what Hamlet means when he holds up his skull and says, "To be or not to be, that's the question." You know how it works, how it goes on? No, we don't have to. So we just stay to this. So now we are Hamlet. We hold up this skull, which is now a matchbox. And we ask ourselves, to be or not to be, that is the question. Yes, the matchbox seems to be, isn't it? We can think of, it's not there, we can hide it, but if we hold it into a hand, it's there. But the first thing we see, it's not only the matchbox we see, it's also the hand.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah. So there is no matchbox without
I see
hand.
you too.
You can't have a matchbox without hand. Yes, you can have. You put it on the floor, but then you have the matchbox and the floor. So the matchbox is never. There is no single matchbox possible. It's always connected to something. This time it's connected to our hand. Also, very profound teaching. Sometimes we just think, "Oh, we can separate things." No, we can't. Everything is connected to another thing, at least. Very profound teaching. So, next thing, we turn it slowly, and we look at the matchbox, and then you might see, oh, there's something else. What's there? At the matchbox, there's a hand, and
The inside.
yeah, that's right, but we couldn't look into that.
Where are the matches?
Now the matches, there is space around, isn't it? Oh, very important. Space around the matchbox, and the space around the matchbox is not the matchbox, isn't it?
No, but it is the reason why we see the matchbox.
Yeah, it's one reason we see the matchbox. There are many reasons, but it's one reason. So the matchbox and the space are not separate. We can't see the matchbox without hand. We can't see the matchbox without space. So the space is not matchbox, no matchbox, not being a matchbox. So to be or not to be is not an or, it's an and. Yeah? Being a matchbox and not being the matchbox is not connected with or, it's connected with and. So we see matchbox and not matchbox. Matchbox are not, we can't separate. So space and appearance always comes together. And in Buddhist teachings, this is said, appearance and emptiness are inseparable. So space is the first kind of way to look at emptiness. Very simple way. This space is three-dimensional. This is kind of created also by our mind. And it's one of the possible expressions of emptiness. I remember there were, I think, at least 7 different levels of emptiness. So we don't want to get into that. It's
but
just...
I think that it's a good idea just to point a little bit what emptiness is, or it is not.
I don't want to go into that, no, because this is another
question.
another long talk. I just want to mention that the experience of space is one of the expressions of this emptiness. It's not the whole thing, but it's one of the expressions. Another expression is silence, for example. Yeah? Silence. If you hear it,
Listen to silence.
kind of tone, we can only hear it because the tone is surrounded by silence. So silence and the tone or they always go together, like the form and the space.
But you have to be aware of it.
You have to be. We are always aware of it, but then Ego King says, space is not interested. I'm interested in the matchbox.
Okay.
Yeah? So our consciousness is kind of spacing out. Put away the space because it's so ordinary. But if you have a vivid experience, then the space comes back. Or you can say, a vivid experience without space is not possible. You can focus on a matchbox or on something and forget about the space. But the moment you open up, this experience gets more vivid, more lively, more interesting.
Can you give a daily life example?
Yeah, I think what I found out is that with seeing it's not so obvious, but with hearing it's more obvious. So, for example, if you hear the cuckoo for the first time in the year, and you are not kind of trying to hear it, it could happen that you hear the cuckoo in a very different way. Of course, it's cuckoo. There's silence, there's coo, there's silence, there's coo, there's silence. You can see, there's silence and coo. Alternating. This is one way of seeing it. It's more like to be or not to be. But if you have the experience of to be and not to be, then you hear the cuckoo like more kind of an echo, very vivid. It seems that it talks to you. There's communication happening. There's appreciation from your side happening. There is wondering you never heard a cuckoo like this. This is when you start to hear emptiness and sound inseparable. Yeah.
So then you value the silence equal as the sound, or you actually don't make
Yes, but you don't do it. It's kind of happening. Yeah, it's not. The moment you start to kind of think of the emptiness, then you're already in the.
It's all about this music. Music does not exist when there is no moment, when there is no music.
Yes,
Okay.
it's very, very, very much so. Yeah, music is both. Is music and not music. Yeah.
Then you can only hear it.
Yes. First of all, this is otherwise you couldn't hear it. That's right. But on the other hand, there is also a kind of veiled experience, like behind a veil, which is the ego version of it, which is mainly, you can also hear the music, but you don't have this real experience of the music. It's not really you experiencing the music. It's kind of, you have a distance. There's music and I'm a listener. Yeah. So, and with the cuckoo, it's the same. If you could hear the cuckoo as if you heard it for the first time, and it's so vivid, might be even too much for you. It might even be kind of yeah.
For the ego.
Have you? Could you find a connection to your experience with this? If there's something happening which is kind of so irritating or so kind of not graspable, yeah, that you kind of have a little shock or a little panic, or you feel this kind of, this is not the way I usually hear. So second
That's
thought.
ego again.
Yeah. You have to hear it totally different. Yes.
So I think it's a very good forward for the open heart program, you know. Because if you are open-hearted, you just experience things as they are, and they are in their own unicity. Because, okay, this is my feeling. Each whatever, it's unique. You know, and if you just connect with that uniqueness, what I would say, you're fully on that. It's beyond my own conception. Oh, this is cuckoo. Did I have money in my pocket? By the way, hearing cuckoo for the first time. And I'm more concerned about that I don't have money in my pocket than hearing the cuckoos.
Yeah, it's really difficult to describe this kind of experience, and everybody's experience is different. But it could also be a very simple thing that you look at, for example, a traffic light, and you think, "Oh, I never saw it such a green." Or as Acharya Rockwell. Did he say it in this talk with the community or another talk? It was about his experience of going out and sitting down, and he said, "Oh, I never had seen a grass green like that." So it's kind of, it's green. It's not that it changes from green to silver or to gold or whatever. It stays green, but the intensity and the communication, the liveliness and the appreciation, and you're really touched by it. This is the heart point, that you don't see only with the eyes, you see with the heart. It's also both.
And you feel oneness.
Yes, but this is also, there is oneness, but there's also the uniqueness.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we tend to kind of, oh, no, we are one. No, we are not one with the grass. We are not one with the grass. But there is this feeling of really no separation. That's right, there's no separation. And but the moment we make it into one, we have another nice concept.
But I mean that.
No, I don't want to correct you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Yeah.
That's what I meant with oneness. No separation.
Any questions, comments?
One.
Please.
Well, if I go back to the level of your example of laying into the grass and ignoring ticks and just thinking that everything is not moving, and after that somebody else comes to see to talk to you, say, okay, actually it is a movement. And that reminds me, my first lesson in physics, it was really the first one, when I was at the school, and it was about this situation, and it was, okay, you are in a train, and the train is moving, but you are sitting still, and you are very sure that you are still. But if somebody, a friend of you, look from the station, they see you that you are moving. And so what I use that example to introduce the reference points, the reference systems, which is the basic of the physics, because if you define something in the physics, you have to have a reference point. And so, where is the reference point in all we discussed today?
That's a nice question.
Somebody has
The reference point
idea.
is space or something.
I have an answer actually, but it's my answer. So I want to share with you. I have an answer, but it's my answer. To share with you.
Never?
Never ever.
Never say ever again, you know. If you're a fan of James Bond, you know what I'm about.
Today I think I realized that there are many reference points and they are all part of the truth.
Because I will
That's the way you look at it.
I will link that reference point with your ego king. Because ego king is the one who said, I made the reference point for all of you, and you have to follow my reference point. Because a reference point is something that really transforms the fluidity into the frozen moment.
That's right, yeah. So, as you said, there are the question of reference point doesn't apply to this kind of direct experience because it depends on the situation. Yeah, the situation is, as it says here, the way you hold it, the reference points change. And reference point, I think this is also a good thing to mention, is this is a word connected to ego activity. So to make it solid, you need first a point to fix it, and then you make it solid, and then you get to attach to it. This is the point. And if you go into the 5 skandhas, there is this one moment where the reference point comes in. This is where the dualistic split starts in the first skandha. Have you all heard about? Yeah, of course you are. No, this is the Buddhist teachings about how ego kind of is created and gets in the 5 steps more solid. Yeah? So it's kind of.
I think that also reference point, they can be something that you learned. Because if you look at this box, I mean, I say it's a box, but actually, I mean, perspective was introduced at a certain moment in time in art, for example, but before that, it wasn't like that. So I suppose that people before that, they wouldn't say that this is a box. You know what I mean? It's like...
You've never seen a box before, is it?
No, it's like with the Flugpunkte, flight point. In art, when you have the
I see.
It's something that that was invented. It's not like this is how it is in nature. So
So you mean that when you look at the picture now, the pictures are all like the railways. They go not parallel in the picture. They go in this way. Yeah. But
in reality, it's not always like that.
Yes, in reality, it's like this.
Yeah, it is, because if
you look at the railway, you will see that at the end, in 2 kilometers, it's so tiny that you think, oh, how could a wagon we're sitting in ever pass this small? Yeah. But I think it's a very useful thing, because this is nature is very clever. They invented this because then you can see, a person is 2 meters, for example, or 150. And if this person is 100 meters from you, you see it like this. So it's a very useful tool to kind of estimate the distance. So if you are a hunter and you see a deer which you want to hunt, which is such small, you can see, okay, it's too far away. I can't really, or I have to be very clever to kind of. No,
But is that something you learn, right?
no it's. I think it's
Perspective?
no. It's in human.
You never experienced it before. Would you really still
I mean-
know that there was a big human being over there, if it was really small?
So, what I think it's that we as humans, and not only as humans, and I think also animals, they have this tool of creating things in a distance due to the fact that there is a distance. And then now I come and I take a, what do you call it? This binocular.
Yeah.
So I take a binocular and I look and I see, oh, this person is not 100 meters from me, it's just 30 meters away from me. But if I go there, nobody will there. So what happens? How does it work? How does this binocular bring this person so close to me?
Kind of bridges the distance.
No.
Well, what kind of answer do you want? There's a physical answer and experimental answer.
Yeah, I want to be a mixture of physical and experimental because you can't, you see it. So the person who sees it must be involved with it. So
Yeah.
normally it says the binocular, they kind of make things bigger, isn't it? So that you can see it better.
No.
But what this instrument does is just change the angle from which the light comes into your eyes. You know, there's prisma in it. So and then change the angle. So our mind thinks, oh, now it comes from a different angle. Then I should create this person in a distance of 30 meters and not of 100 meters. So it's not the instrument which does it; it's our mind which does it.
When I want to go out through the door,
Yeah.
and I won't damage the door, there is one way of going out by doing that. So what kind of I'm looking to the door when I will go out? There's only one way.
To open the door.
Yes.
Yeah, very makes sense.
What my mind is doing.
Your mind is doing, of course it learns. There's also something. It's not it knows not everything from the very beginning, but it just needs one example to know. Then you know how to open all the other doors. You don't have to learn to open this door and then next door somebody has to say this door has to open this way. So it's kind of. So our mind is also intelligent. It's not only creating; it's creating very intelligent things.
That's what I wondered, does a baby learn perspective or does it know perspective when it's born?
I would think
How does work?
I would think the perspective is there already. So it's like put in the cradle. You see?
But I heard that they
sure
learn.
about that.
You're not
I
sure?
heard that they
Because-
learn this was Constance who said that your friend from Lyon, Constance from Chile. I think she was mentioning this as an
Constanza.
example, or someone else.
No.
That the babies they don't. So if the baby sees this, they don't know that the last corner is there. It's gone. They don't.
That's right. Yeah,
experience
that's
the
right.
corner.
This is some. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they are very much in experience and not in thinking.
So if you do this, they think you've disappeared.
That's right. This is.
So how does that relate to how they regard perspective as well? That's what I wanted to know. Is it something that comes into your
Experience by
It's
experience.
like awareness as well develops.
Yeah.
Some things do develop with
I want
the brain.
But it's a very good example, I think, with the children that they do this, and they not only think that now nobody can see me, but they also, they don't see, of course, nobody else. So this is, for me, a very good example that they live by experience, very direct experience. They don't have a kind of interpretation of, and they don't have a kind of fixed view of the world, that there is a world outside existing. They really see and they believe in what they see in their direct experience. So if I do this, I'm not there because I can't see me. It's very, very simple logic.
You know,
isn't
actually,
it?
I did. Now it comes to me. I did hear this story about some. I don't know if it's true, but there was Indians living in dense rainforest, and when they came out of the rainforest, they didn't understand perspective. Because they had never seen a long distance before in their lives.
Yeah, but this doesn't mean that they didn't see kind of this perspective in. But you know, this is what my truth is. So I'm not really saying that's the only way you can see it.
I think that what we are discussing here is the difference between what we see and how we interpret what we see. Because we can see something and have the experience, but after that we don't know what to do with that. And in that case, the case of Shur, they get out of forest and say, okay, I'm here, I saw that, but where I am? And what I want to add is the fact that for the rest of the people here, Constanza is a neuroscience, and so the whole experiment is a neuroscience experience, which is completely beyond, you know. And it was very interesting, and I want to add something about, if I can, to what Shu was saying. I was doing a training 1 year ago about computer-assisted drawings. So it was an AutoCAD. So they really teach us from 2 weeks how to make connection in our brain to see things in 3D. Because when you are generated by computer 3D images, and you have to calculate or you have really to put a line from here to here and not from here to here. And I was really aware of how my brain starts to interpret and how to integrate the whole information about how it was supposed to see that. Just work in that environment, because on the first 2 days I was completely lost.
Yes, we want to do what we want is the computer has to do what we want. But the computer, no.
Computer is like to learn a foreign language, you know, to learn her language and to know how to tell him to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you are projecting, you are drawing a house and you have to make a project of say of a board, you really have to know which already is 3D. You have to be very careful how to do it to be really 3D.
And I know a thing, the opposite of this one is there's an exercise, it's called looking through baby eyes. And we are all very easily aware of able to look through baby eyes again. Just thinking you are a baby and you look around and then you can feel how it felt and what the difference, but what your mind is doing and how you perceive something when you just look through it as if you were a baby. And that makes you, that gives also another new
fresh
fresh feeling, and then you can feel what you were asking for. You really can feel it by yourself if you look through baby eyes.
You just
to
imagine.
The world. Huh?
You just imagine that.
You don't. You just over. You can do it. You can do it now. Just
unbiased.
Through,
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
That would be this,
zonder vooroordelen.
Without any label on it.
Stuff. Like you don't put a label. Like if I see that ball with water, I don't say ball with water. Exactly. That's what I do when I'm old.
Yeah.
But just
translate.
To see see what I see.
When you're trained. No, really.
You label it, yeah.
Yeah, and
Level.
it's difficult to go back as well at the same time.
I think there's also a very nice play,
Get stuck.
which I used to play as a child, and maybe you did it too. This is in German is called Ich sehe was du nicht siehst und das ist rot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a very good approach with your baby eyes, I think, because you know what? Yeah, you heard? No.
No.
So
I
can somebody? So I will.
You sit in the car and you say like, I see what you don't, a thing you don't see, and it's red. And then you, so is it the car? Is it the carpet?
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah,
is
yeah,
red.
yeah, yeah,
The blanket.
Yeah. So the play goes like this, as she explained. Children sit in a car or in a room and they play this play. And one of the children is the person who chooses an object. And for example, a red object. And then he says, she says, I see something which you don't see, which is red. And then all people look around and they can give answers. Oh, it's a book. It's this here. It's this. So then at some point the right object is found, and so then the next round
But
starts.
you have to be honest.
Yeah, this is one thing. But what I want to point out is that with this kind of question, you're starting to look different. You look around and you open your eyes and you let all the reds come in. You see the reds, and you see. At the moment, I see at least 10 reds. So before I didn't see any red.
Yes, that's.
Now I'm kind of open up and I see reds, and then your mind goes from one red object, and then you see, oh, there are different reds. This is a very bright red, this is a very dark red, this is even darker. So you see more details, and you are more interested in red. This is the main purpose of this game. I think this is why children like to play it, because it opens up. They open up and they get a new view of the situation where they are. So, and then you could also go a little bit further. If you like to try it, you can also play it with yourself, sitting in the kitchen, asking yourself, I see an object which I have never seen, which is blue, or which is red. And then you start looking. And then you might see it's a different way of looking at things. And then at some point, a red thing might catch your eye. And you see, oh, this red powder on my board, I never have seen it. And then you are interested, and you just follow your interest and go and look at this. And this might be a little box with paprika powder. It's transparent, you can see the powder. You said, oh, you should look at it. And you see its wonderful color, and then you turn it. And you see, this powder kind of make breaks, it falls like you see. So what I wanted to say with this example, you could even go further and have interested in what you are attracted from, and go into it much deeper, and go into the moment of even more direct experience, into this very, very nitty-gritty, very simple little thingies which we are most of the time not interested.
It's really funny you mentioned the paprika, because in the kitchen we have this cupboard with spices, and for a long time we didn't have paprika, and then one day I was just cooking and suddenly something red catches my eye, and then I was like, oh wow, there's paprika again,
Yeah. It's this way of direct experience which seems to is not made up. It's kind of comes to you.
It just came to me, from the side.
Yeah, it's really, it's very interesting.
Which can be transformed, this experience actually, in another question.
Another question?
Yes, which is the fact that obviously everybody of us know what Tierzak is speaking about noticing things before seeing them, you know. And so it seems to me that I see things before my mind completely put them into a picture.
Okay.
If I can put it in that way, the phrase it that way.
Yeah.
And after that, my mind just catch up with it updates with a new situation.
Yeah.
It's the same about what you told, I think, about with the movement, or not?
Yes, there are things happening before you kind of can grasp them. Yeah. And of course, if you say I see something, I said it last time, you have to have seen it before. Otherwise, you can't say I have seen it. So there must be something happening before you realize that it happens.
So if I can finish what I wanted to say, the fact that
What
I want to finish what I was starting to say about the experience of Tierzak is the fact that even if we don't pay attention to things, we still see things.
Yes.
And this is a good example
we
that
are
we
blind, we
see
can see
things
things.
before. I think.
Yeah, there is this, according to the Buddhist teachings, there is this creation and there is this witnessing. And there are two parts of the same mind and not separate. So there is creation first, otherwise you couldn't see. And then there is the witnessing of what is created. And they happen simultaneously. Yeah. So, I think we could stop at this point, and I'd like to thank you for your coming and for your interest. And I also have something for you, because the last time I gave out some bookmarks, and this time there are bookmarks again.
Do you want us to read a lot?
No, it's very yeah. So it's about Hamlet and the matchbox, and so this the front side says, "To be or not to be, that is the question," and the back side says, "To be and not to be, that's it. No question about that." So you can take. And there are also some from the last. If you don't have it, you can just have it. This is about the ego king and the victim king. So I put them, and you can take some. So what we usually do at the end of a talk or a session like this, we delegate the merit, and we will only do this time the delegation in the Shambhala way. I don't know why, but and so people might know, and if you don't know, just listen. It's about just if there is something we have found here for ourselves, we don't want to keep it to ourselves, we just want to give it to others. Keep it to ourselves, but give it also to others. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom, may the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled, may all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. We can finish with the bow again.
Thank you.